everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of my little podcast. I know it's been a while. I always start these with that. But you know, it's been a busy year. But I thought today I'd take out some time and catch up with the story so far. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about how I managed to join Wild, which, to be honest, is the band I'm still with today, but changed my whole world and my life. Not only the friendship I built up with the members of the band, but just my whole way that life happens. So let's get stuck into that. A boom chicka boom bop bop. A boom chicka boom bop bop. A boom chicka boom bop bop. Boom chicka boom bop bop. So cast your mind back to 2000. Oh my gosh, it's 2023. 23 years ago, and I was playing drums with a guy called Pete Turland. If you go to my previous podcast, you'll know that story. But Pete decided to move back to Canada, and of course that left me without a gig. But because I was like all completely fired up and enjoying what we'd done, I needed another gig. So back then, it wasn't as easy as scouring the internet to find drummer wanted. We had to go to the local papers, and I was in a supermarket one night and just doing the weekly shop as you do, and I come across a magazine. Well, it was a paper, and it was called The Loot. And it was one of those kind of local papers that had kind of adverts for plumbers and carpenters and anything that you needed. And in the paper, they obviously had a column where musicians were wanted. And just by a bit of luck, because Pete had only just left, there was an advert from a band, I didn't know who they were, that wanted a drummer. And they were advertising for a rock and roll drummer. Wow, what did I think? It was right up my street. So I grabbed that advert. I didn't even buy that paper. I just kind of noted down the number. So when I got home, I decided to phone up and say, yeah, I'm a rock and roll drummer. And I would be interested in that position. So anyway, cut the long story short, I spoke to a guy called Paul Gallagher. And we arranged a night for me to come over to his house for an audition. Now, I say house, but he had the similar sort of setup that I have now. In fact, I think it's his setup that inspired me to convert my garage. But he had a garage that was converted into a rehearsal room. It was soundproofed, and anyway, all the equipment was sent up anyway. So I got, this evening, this particular evening. I flew in my car over to Brackley, really excited, super early. I was about a half an hour early before they expected me. And so Paul, as I know now, opened the door and I, introduced myself. And he said, "He of all earliness," was his first words he ever said to me. I still am. So anyway, we got together and we went to his studio, and I met the bass player, and the bass player came a little afterwards, and his name is Hugh Robertson Payne. Now, these two guys are my best friends. I've spent the last 23 years playing with them, but at that particular point, I was completely nervous about the whole thing. Now, when I got into the studio, it was quite unbelievable, actually, because it was a proper recording studio. It had got sort of a studio room with a mixing desk and then an area for the live recording, and it was quite impressive. And so in the live room where we rehearsed, there was a Gretsch drum kit set up. I mean, an audition, and you walk into a studio and there's a Gretsch kit already there for you. So everybody set up, or the two guys set up, and we just run through some traditional rock and roll music. And it was great. It was so much fun. I think they were a bit nervous about whether I was the guy for the job. They'd had 2 previous drummers. They'd also done a couple of records that had been released and wrote their own stuff with the other drummer. I think he was going. I do happen to know. I'm not going to say who it is, but I do happen to know the guy that was their previous drummer, and he was just going on to bigger, better things. And so, long story short, we went into it, we got into it, and I got the job. Now, I got the job, but then I didn't hear anything from them. It was really, really quiet. So this particular day I was having to phone up on the house phone, but the singer, Paul, had got a mobile phone, so I phoned his mobile phone and I said, I was questioning whether I'd actually got the job because it had been about a month and I hadn't actually heard anything. And basically they hadn't got any shows at that particular point. I guess they hadn't booked any because the drummer issue, and you name it or whatever. So anyway, he said, no, we've got a gig on, and I can't remember the dates. It was about a few weeks sort of further down the line. We got together, did some rehearsals, played this first show. Now that's where it started, because it was only in a community centre. Great gig. Really, really super nervous, but we kind of had this rapport with each other, and the music really did flow. A lot of it was the standard rock and roll that I'd played before anyway. So, it worked. I was just getting used to the way they played it. Now, was it for me? Yeah, it totally was. But I think at that particular point, it was really quiet with shows. Like I said, maybe because of the drummer issue. But then things really did take off. I remember, it was funny because I remember, I think it was along the lines of the second show that we'd done, and we were in the changing rooms, and it was all what we used to wear. There are some old photos, if I could probably put some up, but there's old photos as leather trousers and leopard skin shirts. It was all that kind of image, and Wild themselves were kind of hard edge rock and roll. They were kind of in your face. They weren't, I call it, for those that know with the rock and roll things, it's like some of the festivals, what you have is the more authentic rockabilly bands that play the early sort of sets at these rock and roll festivals. It's when it gets a little crazy in the evening where some of the bands are a little bit heavier, louder. Wild were one of those. They changed the arrangements. They changed the sound. They got their own sound, and still have to this day. And so I remember getting ready for this venue, and then just a funny moment, whether I thought I'd made the right decision. The singer turned around to me and says, "Do you want any makeup?" And there they were putting eyeliner on, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. Listen, I will leave you there. Thank you for listening to my stories. It is a pleasure to do this. I enjoy it. I'm not the professional podcaster, but if you yourself want to share any stories with me, I love hearing stories. I really, really do. So I got a few ideas about some up-and-coming podcasts. There is a couple of interviews I want to do with some people that I've already contacted. So maybe the next couple of podcasts, a little bit more often than I have been, will be an interview. But they're all heroes, and I think you're all heroes, all of you that are involved in music or anything you do. So I will catch you next time. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.